What's up, guys? We're going to continue here with Chapter 8, Section 6, where we're going to be factoring ax squared plus bx plus c. So now we have this added coefficient in front of that. So that's what our focus is today. Let's go ahead and jump in. So it says factoring ax squared plus bx plus c when ac is positive. So before, when we didn't have this number, we just wrote out the factors of this. The only difference that you're going to do so far on this one is you're going to be multiplying this by this. So instead of just 2, I need 5 times 2. And I'm going to be writing out the factors of 10. And I'm looking for the one that comes together to equal 11. So 1 and 10. And here I'm writing sums because this is positive. So 1 plus 10 is 11. I don't have to go any further. I already found it. Now the next step is where this gets a little bit different here. What you're going to do is you're going to split this into 2 different terms. And here's what I mean. So I'm going to say 5x squared. And then I'm going to split this one and I'll say plus, it doesn't matter which one goes first. I'll do 10x plus 1x. And then write plus 2. So all I did was just break that in half, because if I were to combine like terms and add these, it equals 11x. I'm not just picking random numbers. It has to be these two, okay, because these are the factors of 10 that add together to 11. I can't just pick like 5 and 6 or something like that. It has to be these 2 particular ones. And then after I do that, the next thing we're going to do is separate this as 2 different things. All right, so I'm going to find the greatest common factor in here and the greatest common factor in here separately, and then write those out in front. So here, the greatest common factor between this is going to be 5x. If I factor out a 5x from this, I'm left with x. If I factor out a 5x from here, I'm left with this. On the second one, the greatest common factor between these is 1. All right, if there isn't a number like this, then I still need to write out that 1. I need a placeholder. So the greatest common factor here between these two is 1. And what am I left with? Well, I'm left with x plus 2. And what you should notice is that this and this are the same. If you do this and these two are not the same, then you made a mistake. Once you've done that, I'm going to factor out x plus 2 as if it's its own term. So I'm going to put that in the front. I'll say x plus 2. And then what's left is going to be this, and that goes in my other binomial. So I get 5x plus 1. And I could quickly double check this. X times that is 5x squared. X times 1 is x. 2x is 10. So 10x plus 1x is 11x. And then 2 times 1 is 2. So it all works to get me back to the original. The added step here is going to be multiplying this first term and the last term, and then splitting up the middle term. Okay, so make sure you took good notes on this. Follow this example very closely as you try this one on your own. The answer will be up in 3, 2, 1. All right, here is what I got, so check your work against mine. I oftentimes get students that ask, well, does it matter which one comes first? What if I have 3x plus 5 and then 2x plus 1? That's perfectly fine. It's not a big deal. So yeah, that's hopefully what you got. Here's a little inspirational quote by a wise man that I once heard. Something that just kind of helps me get through days. Something I just really think about a lot. Really, really intelligent person. Isn't that deep? I mean, my goodness, that is some deep stuff right there. All right, so factoring ax squared plus bx plus c when ac is negative. So this is going to be a little bit different here. So let's take a look. 3 times negative 15 is negative 45. Now, if you recall, when we had the coefficient of 1 for this first term, we were looking for the differences. All right, so we're going to be doing that again. We're looking for the differences. Now, this time there's something specific that needs to happen with that. So let's go ahead and we'll start 1 and 45 has a difference of 44. 3 and 15 has a difference of 12, not divisible by 4. 5 and 9 has a difference of 4. All right, so that's the one that we're looking at. Now, I have two terms here. I have one that's going to be positive and one that's going to be negative. I know that because this is negative. So what I need to do is identify which of the two is going to be the positive or the negative term. If this is positive, then the larger term is positive. If this is a minus sign, then the larger term is minus. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to write out my 3x squared. And then I always like to do the minus 1 first. I would encourage you to do that. So I'm going to write minus, this is going to be 5. Because this is positive, my larger one's positive. So 3x squared minus 5x. And now I get plus 9x minus 15. And you'll see why I like to put the negative 1 first. You don't have to, but if you don't, it could make things a little bit trickier for you. Now, first of all, notice that negative 5x plus 9x is 4x. That must happen. Now, from this point forward, I'm doing the same thing that I've been doing. So the greatest common factor here is x. So I'm left with 3x minus 5. And then the greatest common factor here is 3. So I'm left with 3x minus 5. And then I just factor these things out. So I get 3x minus 5 for the first part, and then x plus 3 for the second part. And that's the answer right there. Now, if I put the negative first, what I end up getting here is where I have to factor out a negative 1 afterwards, because I'm going to have 3x minus 5, and then the other one would be negative 3x plus 5. And so if I just go ahead and put that negative first, that will make it a lot easier for me. I really, really encourage you to do that. Maybe make note of that in the margin of your notes. All right, so here's one for you to try. Go ahead and pause. The answer will be up in 3, 2, 1. All right, so here is what I got. Go ahead and check what you have against mine and see how you did. Let's keep moving. All right, so applying this, it says the area of a rectangle is 2x squared minus 13x minus 7. What are the possible dimensions of the rectangle? And then use factoring to find that. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. Negative 14, I'm looking for terms that have a difference. So I have 1 and 14 has a difference of 13. So it's the first one. This time, this is negative. So my first term is going to be the negative 14. So I'm going to have 2x squared minus 14x plus 1x. I'm going to go ahead and write in that coefficient just to keep things kind of easier for me. Minus 7. And then I go ahead and just start factoring things out. So let's see. These are both divisible by 2x. With x minus 7 here. And then the greatest common factor between these are 1, so I'm left with another x minus 7. Factor that out, I get x minus 7. And what I'm left with here is 2x plus 1. All right, so it says, what are the possible dimensions? It could be x minus 7 and 2x plus 1. Those are my possible dimensions right there. So let's keep moving. All right, so what if you could factor out a monomial first? All right, in other words, there's something that could be factored out from here before we do anything. You should always check for this. Is there something that I could divide all of these by? And the answer in this case is yes, all of these are divisible by 3. So I'm going to factor out a 3 first. So I'm going to say 3. And then when I factor that out, I'm left with 6x squared minus 11x plus 4. And now all I'm going to do is do exactly what I've been doing. And this little 3 right here is just along for the ride. So I'm going to have 6 times 4 is 24. And I need factors that add together for that. So 1 and 24 is 25. By the way, if you get quick at this and you can figure these things out without having to write it all down, that is ideal. All right, so it's 11. So here I'm going to keep my 3 in the front. And then I'm going to have 6x squared. Notice this is minus, so we got to be careful with this one, and I'll show you how we're going to work with this in just a second. minus 8x plus 4, and I'm going to split these just like I did before. But what I'm going to do here is, let's just go ahead and do that. See what happens. All right, so here I have 3, and then I have inside these parentheses, I probably should do brackets, but I'm not, 3x, and then what's left is 2x minus 1. And then over here, if I take out this value, what ends up happening, I'm going to show you something here, is what ends up happening is if I take out this 2, then I get minus 2, and then I'm left with, oh, I need to factor out a 4. My fault. I'm left with a 2x plus 1. All right, 2x plus 1. So what I want you to get in the habit of doing, hopefully you didn't write this down, what I want you to get in the habit of doing is anytime you have this, make this plus and leave that negative right there. And what you'd end up having if you did that is you'd have plus 4 and then negative 2x plus 1. If it's negative 2x plus 1 and then 2x minus 1 on the other side, then what I need to do here is factor out a negative 1. So when I factor out that negative 1, what I end up getting is this 3x, everything else comes down, 2x minus 1. And when I factor out negative 1, that goes here and it gets multiplied by that 4. So I get minus 4. This divided by negative 1 is positive 2x. This divided by negative 1 is negative 1. And now I have the same term here, which is going to be absolutely necessary. So there's kind of an added step here. The other way you could think of this is if I know that this is positive, then I know that these two signs of my binomial must be the same. You could just treat this as addition and then just make sure they're both minus at the end. There's a couple ways to look at it. Just be careful because when it's minus and then a plus, that could really mess with you. There's a lot of different places to mess up. All right, let's go ahead and just factor out these other parts here. So I get 3x minus 4, and that would be if I factored out the 3 first. All right, so it's just finding that common factor and pulling that out and going from there. So always check that first. Always check, is there a factor that can be factored out first? Here's one for you to try. Go ahead and pause. The answer will be up in 3, 2, 1. All right, so here is what I got. Check my work against yours. Hopefully you got the same thing. I believe that's it for today. Yep, so hopefully you took good notes. I'll see you all in class.